What is going on, fellow Guardians? Welcome to the first episode of Best in Slot. This is going to be a series I'm starting where we're going to be taking a look at all of the weapons in a specific weapon class and deciding which ones are good, bad, and the best for you. Today we're going to be covering SMGs specifically for PvE. The following SMGs that I'm about to tell you are the ones that are in-game that are currently not sunset. They may or may not be able to drop right now, and I will also try to tell you the methods of how to obtain them if they are currently available. First up is the 7th Seraph VY7. I'm not 100% sure whether or not this SMG can drop right now in Season 13, but if it does, it may drop from Banshee 44 through exchanging weapon materials. The Ikelos SMG V1.0.2. I believe this SMG cannot drop currently in Season 13, but I imagine it will be making a return rather soon. The Death Adder drops from Prophecy Dungeon. The Multi-Maca CCX, which drops from Iron Banner. The Friction Fire, which drops from Wrathborn Hunts. The Extraordinary Rendition, which drops from Battlegrounds or Umbral Engrams. The Escape Velocity, which drops from random legendary gear, and then the Cold Front, which is currently not able to drop, but will be potentially coming back in future winter in-game events. We will also be taking a look at the exotic SMGs, the Huckleberry, the Risk Runner, and the Terabot. I'm going to be putting these SMGs in a tier list to give you guys an idea of where I personally believe these SMGs belong. Starting with the S tier, we have the Extraordinary Rendition and the Ikelos SMG V1.0.2. In A tier, the Death Adder. In B tier, the Friction Fire and the 7th Seraph SMG. In C tier, the Escape Velocity and the Cold Front. And then in the D tier, the Multi-Maca CCX. Now we're going to be going over what I believe to be the most optimal perks that are on these SMGs, which ones you could also really just kind of get by with that are still going to perform excellently, and then also just kind of go explaining as to why I believe each SMG sits where it does on this tier list. For the first weapon we're going to start with is the Extraordinary Rendition. I'm going to be going through each individual slotting for perks that are available on the weapon, and go ahead and list what I believe to be the most beneficial perks in each slot, and then obviously finish this out with what I believe to be the god roll for these weapons. And obviously feel free to change these to your own preference. In the barrel slot, corkscrew rifling, small bore, fluted barrel, or polygonal rifling. In the magazine slot, appended mag, tactical mag, extended mag, or steady rounds. In your third perk slot, overflow, zen moment, or outlaw. And in the fourth perk slot, frenzy, rampage, one for all, and thresh. In these perks, I believe the ones that you really need to prioritize and look for in your third perk slot is going to be overflow, and in the fourth slot, frenzy. What I believe to be the absolute god roll for this weapon is going to consist of corkscrew rifling, tactical mag, overflow, and frenzy. One of the other main reasons I put this in S tier, aside from having new amazing perks that were introduced in Season 13, is for the simple fact that this legendary is extremely easy to farm currently in Season 13. All you have to do is go participate in battleground events. You will either receive this SMG through the chest, or take your hammer charges and focus Umbral Engrams to increase the likelihood of you getting an SMG, also increasing the likelihood of getting the drop that you want. Next, we're going to talk about the Ikelos SMG V1.0.2. The best barrels on this weapon are corkscrew rifling, polygonal rifling, small bore, fluted barrel, and full bore. The best magazine perks are Seraph rounds, tactical mag, appended mag, extended mag, and flared magwell. Your best third slot perks are threat detector and subsistence. And the best fourth slot perks are Surrounded, Demolitionist, and Disruptor Break. The perk I think you really need to look for, and it's kind of essential on this SMG, is going to be Threat Detector. The fourth slot, you can have a couple different things, depending on the scenario or whatever activities that you're participating in. I believe the absolute god roll for this weapon is going to have corkscrew rifling, seraph rounds, threat detector, and again, the fourth slot, depending on what activities you're doing, could either be surrounded, demolitionist, or disruption break. I don't think it comes as any surprise to anybody that this SMG is S tier, and I'm sure a majority of people know why, but just in case for the people that have no idea, this SMG is S tier because of the insane damage output that is brought about using the overpowered Warmind cells. It basically just allows you to spawn an orb that you shoot and has the ability to clear large rooms of enemies pretty much with just one explosion. This SMG, just by killing enemies, is able to consistently generate these Warmind cells, and obviously, therefore, increases the damage and the speed in which you clear rooms reliably, consistently, and just with total ease. The next SMG we're going to be taking a look at as we go down into the A tier is the Death Adder. The barrels for this gun that you're going to want to look for are corkscrew rifling, hammer-forged rifling, polygonal rifling, small bore, or fluted barrel. In the magazine slot, appended mag, extended mag, flared magwell, and tactical mag. In your third perk slot, feeding frenzy and subsistence. And in your fourth perk slot, disruption break, firefly, and quick draw. Of all of these perks, I think the perks that you need to prioritize and specifically look for, in my personal opinion, are feeding frenzy, disruption break, or even firefly. The god roll for this weapon is going to be corkscrew rifling, tactical mag, feeding frenzy, and disruption break. This SMG sits at the A tier because it has extremely large mag size, the ability to do large amounts of DPS to targets that have solar shields if you utilize the perk disruption break, along with the consistency of having reload speed increased with feeding frenzy. On another note, this SMG can generate Warmind cells using the Dragonfly perk in the fourth slot, also using the armor mod Wrath of Rasputin, and this SMG would sit in S tier if there was a more wide range of perk, or a more consistent way to generate Warmind cells, or just have stronger DPS on this SMG in general. Another reason this is an A tier is this is another SMG that is extremely easy to farm. After all you have to do is to farm the room puzzle encounter in the Prophecy Dungeon over and over for this SMG. Now moving down to the B tier, we're going to start with the Friction Fire. The barrel choices are going to be corkscrew rifling, fluted barrel, hammer-forged rifling, small bore, and polygonal rifling. In the magazine slot, tactical mag, extended mag, appended mag, and steady rounds. In your third perk slot, threat detector, field prep, and in your fourth perk slot, rampage and wellspring. Let's go ahead and actually take a moment to discuss why field prep was even mentioned. Field prep is actually an extremely strong perk that a lot of players don't use. Field prep, for one, gives you an armor slot mod free up, because you get bonus ammo reserves having this perk on your weapon in the first place, and then on top of that, your weapon actually drastically increases its reload speed when crouching while you're out of ammo. The thing with field prep that really turns a lot of players away from it is the simple fact, including myself, that none of us actually think to crouch right before we're out of ammo so that we can have that increased reload speed. We're more so just focused on clearing the ads. So if it's something you think you could make a habit out of, that perk really would be helpful for you. But with that thought on the side, let's go ahead and go into the prioritized perks. I think the two perks you're really going to want on this SMG is going to be Threat Detector or Rampage. I believe the god roll for this weapon is going to be Corkscrew Rifling, Tactical Mag, Threat Detector, and Rampage or Wellspring depending on the scenario or what build you're wanting to go. The SMG sits in B tier for a couple of reasons, one being, like we mentioned, there aren't a whole lot of reliable reload perks on this weapon, and on top of that, there's only one form of damage buff on this weapon whatsoever, and that's going to be through Rampage. Yes, the perk is strong, but now that Season 13 has released new perks like Frenzy, it simply gets outperformed and outshined by other SMGs with total ease. Also, this weapon's just not very strong. Let's go ahead and move on to the 7th Seraph SMG. In the barrel slot, you're going to want to look for Corkscrew Rifling, Small Bore, Fluted Barrel, Hammer-Forged Rifling, or Polygonal Rifling. In the mag slot, Appended Mag, Extended Mag, Tactical Mag, or Steady Rounds. In the third perk slot, Fourth Times the Charm or Ambitious Assassin. And in your fourth perk slot, Feeding Frenzy or Firefly. The only perks I really think you should be bothering to prioritize on this weapon is going to be Ambitious Assassin, Feeding Frenzy, or Firefly. I think the god roll for this weapon, if you would even call it that, is going to be Corkscrew Rifling, Tactical Mag, Ambitious Assassin, and Feeding Frenzy. In all honesty, the SMG would really sit in either D tier or F tier if it weren't for the saving grace of Warmind cells. Yes, this SMG is just like the Ikelos SMG, and it can generate Warmind cells. However, the issue with this SMG is just the fact that the Ikelos SMG simply does everything this SMG can do, but on a significantly better level. Let's go ahead and move on down to the C tier SMGs, starting with the Escape Velocity. This weapon doesn't have barrels, so we'll actually be switching between the sights. In the sights slot, you have the IS-2 Classic, the IS-5 Circle, and the Model 6 Loop. In the magazine slot, Tactical Mag, Appended Mag, Extended Mag, and Flared Magwell. In the third perk slot, Overflow and Threat Detector. And in the fourth perk slot, Osmosis and Surrounded. The prioritized perks on this weapon are really just what comes to your personal opinion. I believe the best ones that you're going to want to look for is going to be Overflow and either Osmosis or Surrounded in the fourth slot, and the God roll is very fitting of that as well. With the Model 6 Loop Sight, Tactical Mag, and Overflow and or Osmosis are Surrounded. The SMG really sits in C tier for one reason, and the only reason it really sits in there is just because it does have basic combinations that are kind of strong on this weapon, like Threat Detector and Surrounded, but obviously just doesn't outperform previous SMGs that we've already discussed that have this combo and are able to pump out massive amounts of more DPS. Moving on down to the cold front, in your choices for the barrel slot you have Small Bore, Hammer Forged Rifling, Fluted Barrel, Polygonal Rifling, Extended Barrel, and Corkscrew Rifling. In the magazine slot, you have Appended Mag, Extended Mag, Tactical Mag, and Steady Rounds. In your third perk slot, you have a choice between Surplus, Subsistence, or Underdog. And in the fourth slot, you have Rampage, One for All, and Surrounded. When it comes to what perks you should prioritize, I don't really know. There aren't a whole lot of perks that I would prioritize on this weapon, but I guess if you had to choose, I would pick Surplus and Rampage just to get the additional stability bonus, and then Rampage is still fairly consistent in clearing ads in lower level activities. If there was a god roll of this weapon, I guess it would be Corkscrew Rifling, Tactical Mag, your choice of either Surplus or Subsistence, and Rampage. The fact that this SMG is currently just not available, and then also the fact that it just doesn't have a lot of damage supporting perks on it or reload speed perks on it, really helps this SMG sit very snugly at the bottom of C tier. And last, and in my opinion, quite literally least, the Multimaca CCX. This weapon also doesn't have barrels, so you have a choice between the sights of the Model 6 Loop, the IS-2 Classic, and the IS-5 Circle. In the magazine slot, Appended Mag, Tactical Mag, and Extended Mag. In the third perk slot, Threat Detector, Subsistence, and Killing Wind. And in the fourth slot, you have Kill Clip, One for All, and Unrelenting. This actually does have some decent perks that you would want to prioritize, and I think the perks that you want to prioritize are going to be Threat Detector, One for All, Kill Clip, or Unrelenting. And I think the god roll for this weapon is going to have the Model 6 Loop, Tactical Mag, Threat Detector, and just really whatever you want in that fourth slot, but in my opinion, Kill Clip is going to fit best there. I've played with this SMG a little bit, and it really just feels as though it wasn't designed for PvE. It has a couple decent perk pulls as mentioned previously, with Threat Detector and Kill Clip that can help the SMG actually output DPS, but there really is nothing about this SMG that makes it unique or makes it shine above any other in the game. Combining the fact that this SMG just doesn't have a lot of unique perks to it, and the fact that you have to grind it only whenever Iron Banner is available, is, in my opinion, fairly easy and fairly reason enough to go ahead and put this SMG at the very bottom of the list. Now that we've finished up the legendary SMGs, let's just jump straight into the exotics. With the state of Destiny 2 supporting SMGs as much as it does right now, it's hard to put them in any order as they all actually perform fairly well. If we had to put them in one, we would put Risk Runner at the top, then the Huckleberry, and then the Teraba. Taking a look at the Risk Runner, this weapon features the exotic perk, the Arc Conductor. When taking arc damage, this weapon becomes more powerful and resists incoming arc damage. Kills extend the time in the overcharged state. This paired with its other perk, Superconductor, which whenever Arc Conductor is active, shots fired have a chance to become chain lightning and return ammos to the magazine. This allows you to shred through waves on waves of light enemies, pretty much like it's absolutely nothing. And obviously these effects are just increased as you get the masterwork for this weapon complete. Next up is the Huckleberry. The exotic perk featured on this weapon is Ride the Bull. You gain increased rate of fire and recoil while you're holding down the trigger, and kills with the weapon reload a portion of the magazine. This perk, simply paired with Rampage, is relatively self-explanatory, as getting kills will not only increase your damage with Rampage, but you also receive some ammo back into the weapon itself, and it will continue to increase your rate of fire while you have that trigger held down. This, paired with the fact that the masterwork that is available for this weapon actually makes it where instead of only getting a portion of your magazine back, you actually get your full magazine back on kills, allows you to really sustain in firefights a lot longer with this weapon, and just really push through waves of adds. The last exotic SMG that we're going to take a look at is the Teraba. This exotic weapon features the perk Ravenous Beast. This weapon stores power when dealing or receiving damage. Whenever it is completely full on storing power, it will unleash the Beast. What this does essentially is just give you a full-on damage buff. I'm not sure if it does anything else. I personally don't have the weapon and don't have any intentions of actually going and farming the sigils for it. But it is relatively strong when paired with this other featured perk, Bottomless Appetite. Dealing continuous damage extends the duration of Ravenous Beast. So you are going to run into the simple issue of that this weapon isn't going to be able to clear mass waves of red adds nearly as good as the Huckleberry or the Risk Runner, but you're going to be able to charge up and be able to do damage to enemies that are bosses or yellow bars instead of being able to do massive damage to light adds. So yes, it does have its own pros and cons. However, why I would put this at the bottom is simply because I just don't think you would really turn to an exotic SMG to be what you would use for your primary DPS for boss enemies or champions. If you've made it this far in the video, I greatly appreciate you taking time to actually see this list all the way through and see the reasonings as to why I believe each SMG sits where it does. If you have any disagreements or agreements, feel free to express that in the comments down below. And if you want to see more informative content like this in the future, go ahead and hit that like button, comment down below what more informative content you would want to see if it be a different weapon type, or if you had different ideas of your own that we could possibly try to expand on as well. I appreciate you guys taking time. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.